There has been a lot of talk about hacking and cheating in Elite Dangerous lately, yet Frontier seems to do very little about it. And today I'm going to give you my point of view of why I think that is. The D2A merch store is open. There are t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies, mugs and tote bags with many cool designs. Head down to the link in the video description and get yourself your merchandise today. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Elite Dangerous with downtoearthastronomy. So there are two situations I want to talk about today. Later on in the video we're going to talk about the whole why we don't see Frontier going out and saying we have now mass banned a number of players for using hacks and cheats. And the other one is when you go and you report a player, why don't they get like banned from when you just report them? Or maybe they do. Anyway, let's dive into the first situation where you spot a player in game and you're pretty sure that player is using some kind of hacks or cheats. And you go ahead and you use the report function and you report the player. And you may, I actually haven't done this, but you may receive like a thank you for the report email or something like that, or maybe it just pops up on screen. But that's pretty much the last thing you hear. You never hear it back. And that will lead a lot of people to think that no action has been taken, because you never get that feedback saying, thank you for your report, that player has now been banned based on your report. You never get that information back. And this is pretty common in most games, that you don't really get this kind of feedback, and I believe the reason is that if you got that information about that specific player being banned from the game, that the company running the game would run into some problems with some personal data protection laws, and they'll probably get some issues there. So I don't think it's because that they don't take any actions, it's just because from the point that you have made a report, that issue is no longer, basically has no longer anything to do with you. It is, from that point on, it is an issue between Frontier and the reported player. And that's why you never really hear any feedback from it. So I would definitely recommend that you keep using this report feature if you spot people. And if you report someone and you then spot them in game again a few days later, well, and they're still using the hacks, report them again. And you just keep reporting, get better confirmation of it, take some screenshots if possible, do videos if you can. Make sure Frontier gets as much information as they possibly can. The more information you give them, the higher the chances that they will take action against it. But just keep in mind that you will not get any feedback from Frontier when you do a report on a player, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing happening behind the scenes. The other situation is the more general, like now there's a lot of focus on people using a specific hack in the game. And why are we not seeing some very concrete statements from here saying we have now taken steps to go and prevent this from being used, or saying something along the lines like we have now banned X number of players. There are two things in this, I think. First of all, Frontier, of course, has absolutely no interest in going out and telling us what steps they've taken. They can tell us that they have taken steps, but they're not going to tell us what steps they've taken. And they've simply done that. Of course they won't do that, because if they did so, then also the people hacking and creating the hacking software would have an easier time finding ways to navigate around those preventive measures that Frontier have in place. So by keeping those secret, it makes them more effective. So I think that's why Frontier is not going to go public with exactly what they're doing to prevent hacking. But that doesn't stop them from going out and saying, we have now banned X number of players for using hacks. They wouldn't get into the same problems that they would if they were just a case on an individual person, because now it's aggregated data. You can't refer that information of, let's say, 100 players that they were banned. They can't refer that back to an individual. So I don't think they will get into any legal issue for going out and posting something like this. And indeed, other companies has done that in the past. So the question is, why don't we get this kind of post from Frontier? Frankly, if they did, it would be, I think, a pretty good PR move, because I think that would put a lot of put a bit of a lid on this whole thing. If people got the feeling, okay, so they have actually done something, they have actually gone out and they have actually banned people based on the fact that they detected that they were using hacks. And I can see some reasons for why they won't do it. And I think it has to do with what size the number of players they are maybe banning is. It could be in one situation that it's so low that they don't want to go public with it because maybe they actually have a really hard time detecting this, which may very well be the case. It may also be that they don't have the tools in place. A lot of you guys have seen comment on the fact that there's this exe file in the Elite Dangerous install folder called watchdog.exe, and people were speculating if that is something they were using to kind of detect if people were using hacks. But I looked into it, and it turns out that that is a like crash detection tool. So when the game crashes and you get that, do you want to send a report to Frontier kind of thing? I believe that is Watchdog that is handling that. It's collecting that information and looking at what was happening at the time of the crash. So I think that is a stability thing that they have that. I don't think that is any cheat prevention there. The other situation, of course, is what if that number is way bigger than you might expect? What if they have in fact banned a lot of players? Obviously those players wouldn't go public with the fact that their account got banned, apart from what was that one case with the guy blocking Shinata Desra, of course, but that was a public statement already, so that kind of makes sense. But if that number could also be a lot bigger than many of us would expect, and if Frontier then went public saying we have now banned, let's say, 2,000 players for using this, that would then show that this is a much larger problem than people initially thought. And that again could also have a negative feedback from the community. So I can see it could be either of those two. It could also be that they simply just don't want to go out. There could also be if that's the case, then I would really hope that they would go out, regardless of if it's a small or big number. I really hope they would go out and tell us, like, guys, we cannot tell you exactly what we're doing, but we can tell you that this number of players are no longer have access to open, have banned to solo, or been banned completely, or have received a warning, or whatever they've done, based on the fact that they will be using hacks and cheat in Elite. I understand that Frontier don't want to draw focus to it, but I think at this point it's already reached a level where it's gone outside just the Elite Dangerous community. There are several like gaming news sites, like larger gaming news sites, that are beginning to pick up on this and are making articles about it. So there's definitely a lot going on, and this has definitely reached way beyond what is just like people being mad about on the forums and Reddits and YouTube and stuff like that. So I would really hope that Frontier would go on and make some kind of statement that would kind of put a lid on this, because as long as they keep silent, this is just gonna keep spiraling upwards and out of control, I think. I don't know, maybe they're just trying to ride out the storm and wait for this whole thing to die down again. I don't know. So if there's one thing you should take away from this video, is that even though we don't get some clear information from Frontier regarding the actions they're taking against people hacking in Elite, whether it is a case on an individual player or it is like mass banning of players, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. There could be many reasons why Frontier don't want to do it. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please go down and hit the subscribe button, give the video a like, and also next time, I'll see you guys in space.